And as usual, we are live. You are here with Brother Asar Imhotep with Conversations with Brother Asar, where we talk about basically any and everything under the sun. And today's topic is actually going to be on my latest book, which is called Where is the Love? How Language Can Reorient Us Back to Love's Purpose. And we'll be talking about love in general, how that relates or how critical it is in terms of intimate personal relationships, as well as community development and business and economic development. And so we have a few of the panel members. Some more will be joining us a little later. As usual, we have Brother Wujawu, Iri Maat. You can say something, introduce yourself.
Hotep. Yeah, appreciate you having me on, and I look forward to discussing where's the love. Just where is it? I'm trying to find it. So,
All right, appreciate it. We have from the Amaral Squad, Brother Ishmael Bey. You introduce yourself.
Yes, sir. Peace and blessings. And I'm asking the same question: where is love? And seeking ye shall find. So, good topic. Thank you.
All right. We also have a sister, Evelyn. I don't know if her mic, if you would like to say something, you have to unmute your mic.
Hello. Yes, I'm just here to listen. I think this is an excellent topic, and I'm agreeing with the brothers that, yes, where is the love?
All right. Welcome you all, and welcome everyone who is listening live. I just want to say that for those who are listening live, and if you have a question for myself concerning the book or the topic in general, or for any one of our panel members, please hit that Q&A button at the top of your screen. It'll allow you to type in a question. Something will pop up. You can type in your question. I will see it here on my right-hand side, and I will ask your question live, and we will do our best to answer your question as accurately and truthful as possible. And so there will be a little point in here where I'll start sharing my screen, but just to give you a little background of the book itself. Again, the title is Where is the Love? How Language Can Reorient Us Back to Love's Purpose, a preliminary linguistic analysis. And this book is, actually kind of years in the making. It's a relatively small book, at least in my opinion. It's only 118 pages, 7 by 10 in terms of the size of the text. But it's taken me quite a few years to write this text. It's actually, and I should say this, that I actually wrote this in 2013, and it was a preliminary work. It was an ebook. I gave it out for free, to the world basically. I was getting some feedback, and so I made certain adjustments. I added another chapter, and changed the cover or whatnot, and now I've released it on February the 14th, which was Valentine's Day of 2015. So this is an updated variant, and this is the book for those who haven't seen it, an updated variant of the previous text. And so the initial question for which the book is titled came about as a result of not only examining, my own personal relationships, but just looking at, relationships in marriage in general, just across the world. And, something that really kind of sparked this, ironically, besides just my own personal experiences and just observing the relationships around me in terms of parents, grandparents, family, neighborhood, things of that nature. was watching a film, a documentary film that came out in 2003, I think. It was 2003 or 2004, which was called The Lost Boys of Sudan. And if y'all are familiar with The Lost Boys of Sudan, or if you're unfamiliar with The Lost Boys of Sudan, this was a film that was documenting the transition of some Sudanese teenagers who were basically exiled and were refugees in other African countries as a result of the genocide that was going on in Darfur. And so in this particular film, a few of the Lost Boys, got clemency here in the United States, and they were kind of scattered in different states around the United States. And so there was this one young man who was, I wouldn't say shipped, but he migrated to some state in Central America, Central United States, not Central America, but still America, But anyway, to Central America, and he went to I ain't gonna say an all-white high school, but a predominantly white, European descendant, in terms of population, high school. And so, of course, there's not many people like him there. But like all human beings, we find ourselves attracted to the opposite sex. And I guess there's some of us who are attracted to the same sex. That's a different conversation. But this young man took a liking to this young Caucasian woman. And he, to show his affection, he caught a bird and gave it to her as a gift and a present. And, her being an American, she didn't really know how to take that sign of that gesture of interest or whatnot, because it's not every day that, a brother just goes catch a wild bird and, gives it to a sister as a sign of, his interest, in a woman. And so it as a person who studies, culture in general, just world cultures and anthropology and things of that nature. Hold on one second.
Her being in America.
Mike? Okay. As a result of, just my interest in anthropology and things of that nature, one of the first questions I asked, which I haven't asked at that point in my life, was really like, how did African people view love? What was their conceptualizations of it? How did they articulate it, and how did they show and express their love for one another and interest in things of that nature? So this was, early in 2003, 2004, when I saw that film. And so, I decided to look more systematically into this African concept of love. Ironically, there really isn't much literature, on the African concept of love. There are a few examples in terms of, romantic, love, but it's more so in the context of, kind of old letters that people have found over the years. And so, like for instance, with the ancient Egyptian love letters, or some of the old love letters from, the Ethiopians with the Ge'ez script and stuff like that, and some kind of contemporaries, but nothing really systematic in terms of an analysis, saying of what love is in the African context. And so, with that, I'd like to welcome you, brother Ankh.
How you doing, brother? How y'all feeling today?
Feeling good, man. Feeling good. We have brother Ish with us. We have brother Wujaru, and we have sister Evelyn. On the panel. And so right now I'm just giving a rundown of, kind of what led up, to the book itself,
Okay.
and and then we'll get into it, a little bit more heavily.
All right.
All right.
Make sure they got their
So-
books. They got their books.
I see brother Art got his.
Yeah, got mine.
And I like to say to everyone who has supported thus far, thank you very much for your support. And I know like a lot of them have recently got it, so they're still kind of going through the text and absorbing the text. So I await your feedback. Once you have, I see Brother Wujawu holding up his copy, and we'll talk about Wujawu's recent book that he just released a little later as well. And but yeah, so trying to look into the African concept of love, was very challenging because there wasn't much literature, on it. And I was still a college student then, so of course when you're in college you're broke. So of course I can't afford, to get a whole bunch of books or to travel and do the primary research myself. So it took a number of years to really, accumulate certain text, to where I could, look at this a little bit more critically. But even still, even to this date, some 10, 11, 12 years later, it is still, very limited in terms of actual text that you can look at that, kind of explain all of this. And so, what I also, decided to do in terms of research was to look at the word love itself, because you got to remember that Africa is a very large continent. And so you have hundreds upon hundreds of groups there, and to try to study each and every one of them would be very, very, very time consuming, and I would be like 50 something when I finished. And so, but as a person who also studies language, I've noticed as well that a lot of Indo-European words have African origins. And so I asked myself the question, does the word love itself have an African origin? And if it does, what is the difference between the Indo-European conceptualization of love and the African, if there is, such a difference? And so this is how, the text begin to kind of solidify a little bit, more deeply here in terms of a research focus. And so I just want to, I'll wait on that. I'll say this as well, that, I did discover that the word love itself, has an African origin. So when you say the word love in English, it's basically an African word. And there are certain meanings, there's certain meanings that match as well, but there is a fundamental difference, and it has to deal with the culture itself, the fundamental logic and premise behind the term, which is different and which I go into in the text. But as a result of doing this research, I discovered the greater impact of what it was that I was researching, and how it had moved beyond simply just trying to understand, personal relationships, but how this concept is critical to any kind of economic, development. And so, even though it has a small portion in the book, is very fundamental, in terms of how to utilize this knowledge that, I was able to accumulate on this concept for the benefit of developing African American people politically and economically. And hopefully we can get into some of that today. And so I wanted to have this, kind of Q&A, for the people, for anyone who is, not necessarily familiar with me, and the worker is just curious about what it is about. So they can, you can get a deeper understanding, of the text, and to also clarify certain things which may be a little elusive to individuals who may not understand linguistics, so to speak. And so, to reiterate, this is a linguistic analysis, or at least the first part of the book is a linguistic analysis. So to understand certain aspects of it, you may have to have some background. I try to, as much as possible, kind of explain certain things in a conversational manner as time went on, in terms of the linguistic analysis. But there's a lot I had to leave out because I wanted to keep the book small without having to explain linguistics and then come back to the question itself. And so I had to do the linguistic analysis in the first chapter, because I have to satisfy the academicians who would look at this question very critically in terms of my hypothesis that the word love itself is an African word. And so the first chapter has to deal with linguistic groundings. Why am I able to look into African languages for this particular term? And because of course, for the people in the linguistic community, they'll be looking like, on what grounds can you compare African languages to Indo-European? They're two different, continents, two different, language families. We assume no relationship between, Africa and Europe on the linguistic front. And so I had to be able to lay that down systematically, so where people will be like, okay, we have to take this analysis seriously. He's done the requisite work, and so so that's that. And then after I've done that linguistic analysis, then it just gets kind of conversational, and so any person I think can follow it after that particular point. I know with Brother Wujawu and Brother Unk that y'all just received y'all text relatively recently, so I know y'all didn't really have a chance to go through everything. But what if are there any questions that you may have had, just kind of skimming through what you've been able to skim through thus far?
I don't have no questions. Let me see. I want to find this chart real quick. Hold on. I was going over the analysis of the word Mayat.
All right. Matter of fact, I'll be going through that a little later.
Yeah, I just found it interesting how that word pops up in different things, and it's just a couple. The way you put that together, I was just trying to figure out, like, I could put it together in my mind and see why you put it there like that, though. That's.
Yeah.
Let me see. What page is it? Let me see. The page is on chart. No, love and African content. That'd be on that page, I believe. Yeah. Okay. I think it's page 51, correct?
I'm skipping through now.
Yeah. Emergence of Mayat in African cultures.
Yeah, that chart there is from Dr. Theophilo Wobinga's text on, let me see, Egypt, Ancient History of African Philosophy, in a companion to African philosophy. It's an article in a text.
Okay.
By the editor Kwasi Wiredu.
Okay.
And so so this is his analysis, his comparative analysis of the word Maat in different African languages. And as you can see, I said that I'm really not convinced of this particular chart, the way that he presented. It's too wide in scope in terms of it's too free in terms of his analysis, in terms of the meanings. and so, you know, right after that, I give an example from Dr. Alan Anselin, who's an Egyptologist and a linguist out of the Caribbean. And I think his analysis is more spot on, based on my independent research, you know, on this word. And so from there, you know, then I go into my chart, which is, you know, table 11.
Okay, all right.
On page 53. And so, you know, kind of, you know, after that, I kind of build up so you can see, you know, exactly how, you know, I came to this conclusion in terms of its pronunciation. And then, of course, you know, the subsequent analysis, you know, after that in terms of its applications and things. And so, you know, we can get into that a little later, and I'll show you. I'll try to make it more plainly.
So basically, Mayat, when you're talking about the truth, man, it's based off of how accurate you are. Is that basically what you're getting from that?
Well, no. The word Maat itself is not a single word.
Right. Okay.
It's different words, and we have to remember that the ancient Egyptians did not write out their vowels. So they just put the consonants together in the consonant clusters. The Hebrew writing script works the same way, and the early Arabic works the same way. It did not have its vowels inside. So you would just kind of have to know the language to know what is going on. But they had things like determinatives or class, or what do we call them? How did I forget this word all of a sudden? Classifiers.
Okay.
Classifiers in the script to let you know the context of which the word exists, and probably for the people who knew the language, how to properly pronounce the language. But as far as that is concerned, I'm just showing you, that Maat in its historical pronunciation was pronounced differently. We pronounce Maat, kind of based on Egyptology speak.
Right,
but
right.
if we understand the root of Maat, then you will understand, how to pronounce it, and its other applications, its other variations in the actual ancient Egyptian and other African languages. And so, that's that. So the word Maat, in terms of rightness, correctness, straightness, that aspect of it comes from the same root that we find in the word love itself. But we'll get into that, because I know people are visual, so I prepared a few slides, so the people who don't necessarily have the book can know exactly what it is.
Okay.
That we're going through. So I'll do that. If Brother Wujabu, do you have a question?
No, I didn't have a question. I haven't gone from cover to cover yet, but I guzzled it. I've been guzzling it. And I'm just in agreement with everything. A lot of things that I have researched prior to reading it, it's just right in line, especially with the law and interdependence, because based on interdependence, I can see how love is a foundation for economics, because I deal with relationships. So I can see the connection between love, relationships, family, and even economics, and how you deal with one another and deal with different communities and deal with different nations. So, I didn't really have a question yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just all in agreement with what I've read so far, and it confirms a lot of things that I've read, and then I've learned a lot, so I'm good.
All right. Appreciate it. Okay. So now I'm gonna do the old sharing of the screen. So I can do this PowerPoint here. I'd like to welcome to the panel Cornelius. Are you there? Be silent. So I'm gonna mute your mic, Cornelius. Well, he just dropped out randomly. So hopefully he'll be back. But okay, and for everybody who is watching live, again, if you have a question as far as what I'm talking about here, or what anything that we've said on this panel discussion, hit the Q&A button at the top of your screen, and it'll allow you to type in your question, and then I'll be able to see it, when I look over, on my control panel to my right, and then I'll ask you a question. If you have a question that is to be directed specifically to a panel member, please state that in your question. That, for instance, this question is directed to, Brother Ish, yada 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 question mark, and we'll go from there. And so, everyone on the panel, somebody let me know if y'all can see my screen. Wait 1 second. I want to make sure that y'all can see my full screen when I do it. So I make sure that I've done everything correctly. So can you see me in the full screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Full screen. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate y'all. Alrighty. So again, the title of the book is Where is the Love? Subtitled How Language Can Reorient Us Back to Love's Purpose. And so, of course, this is question and answers with Brother Asar. Today is March 29th, 2015. And so this is the map of the continent of Africa. In our Western conceptualization, it is upside down, but the proper Afriorientation, it is in its correct orientation to where our modern South is their north, and our modern north is Africa's south, at least in the ancient Egyptian conceptualization. So just showing this to let you know that, we're going to do this from an African-centered point of view. And when we're looking at this concept of love, we will be looking and understanding it from its African context, well, within its African context. And so it may require you in many respects to, kind of flip what you understand upside down, what we would think is upside down, and, to really get this this wisdom that our African ancestors left us. So that's that. And this is the book cover. Where is the Love? Said everything else already. Briefly, I'm going to go through the table of contents. There's a linguistic abbreviation, the preface, the introduction, and now I'll just give a little brief synopsis of, each one of the chapters. As I mentioned before, chapter 1 is the linguistic groundings. This is where I basically set up the understanding, the linguistic arguments that allow for me to say that, hey, we can look into African languages to better understand this word in the Indo-European. So I laid a foundation in chapter 1. In chapter 2, we go through the definitions of love in the Indo-European languages. I described the African as well, but this one's primarily dedicated to the Indo-European languages. And so it's kind of self-explanatory. I kind of divert a little bit from that aspect of the discussion so I can discuss thoughts and emotions. Over the years, as I've been, researching this, I would always get into these discussions and debates with people, especially people in the spiritual community, as it regards logic, versus emotion. And for us in the West, we have this conceptualization that thoughts and emotions, are two separate things and that they are warring with each other. Well, I discuss in this, even from the, modern Western psychological perspective, as well as the African perspective, that demonstrates that this is one of those modern myths, that, thoughts and emotions, logic and emotions are warring with each other in two separate things. We discover that, your emotions are basically a reflection of your thoughts and values. And I had to put this in this particular text, not only to deal with that, but to kind of set up something later on in our discussion in the book as it regards, you know, choosing to love or not to love, in essence. And so, you know, that's that chapter. Then chapter 4 is, you know, what is love, or what is love in the African context. So now I'm digging in to, you know, the concept of love within the African context. Chapter 5, you know, we take a slight deviation to understanding the powers of being. And this is, you know, an analysis of the development of the double, the spiritual world, and how all of this plays into, you know, what is to come in the following chapters as it regards this concept of purpose in the African context, because the concept of love in Africa is a bit more broader. And so to understand love in the African context, you got to understand cosmology and the universe itself, and how that relates to the person, and this concept which Amadou Hampati, you know, has coined the people of the person. And so this people of the person, you know, is the different aspects of the self. They play a critical role in why we come together in intimate relationships in the first place. And that is to develop strongly these people of the person. And so I get into that in that particular chapter in understanding the powers of being. Chapter 6, how being a whole helps us to better understand love. And, you know, yes, that was done on purpose. It was done on purpose for two reasons. You know, one, I discuss in the book this concept of paronymy. And so I want to give you a live example of paronymy and how it's being used here. But secondly, this chapter is referring not to, of course, a loose person who likes to have sex, you know, just with any and everybody, male or female, but more so an actual garden tool. And because a whole is symbolic of farming. And in this chapter, I demonstrate using, I discuss love using the art of farming as a kind of allegory and metaphor for love, and how, you know, if you can understand the farm work, then you can understand love in how to utilize it and what to expect in intimate and interpersonal relationships. And so chapter 7, the Asar Imhotepian Guide to Relationships, I give my own insights into what you would need in order to have a more successful relationship, something that is long lasting in terms of a certain criteria that which you would need to know in order to move forward with somebody. And then, of course, chapter 8 is the conclusion. So I basically sum up everything, and this is kind of where I discuss, you know, the political and economic aspects, you know, of love. And then, of course, my bibliography, so y'all can find all my citations and, you know, scrutinize them, you know, like any good reader and scholar should. So that's the table of contents. That's, you know, the book in a nutshell. And so, as I said before, you know, the first part of the book is a thorough linguistic analysis. And there's a certain framework that I'm utilizing in this book. Now, when I originally wrote this book, I did not have Jean-Claude Mboli's text. I was aware of it, but I didn't have it yet. And so, but it's ironic that when I got it, that basically his whole book was in alignment with the themes that I already was discussing in this work and other works that I am working on and or you know, have written, you know, before at this particular point. And so, you know, when I was updating this version of the book, I refine certain things, and I like to use his framework, for helping to better understand why we are able to use the African languages to ascertain the ultimate meaning of the word love, in Indo-European. And so this is his book, Origin of African Languages. Is written in French. It came out in 2010. Matter of fact, we had him twice on my channel, and he has blessed us with, a lecture and workshop, basically, on the fundamentals of his book. And so, he has revised and revitalized Dr. Theophilo Wobinga's Negro-Egyptian language phylum. And right now what you're looking at is a chart from his text, the genealogical tree, which discusses, the Negro-Egyptian stages as it regards these three fundamental stages of development of the Negro-Egyptian language family, for which the ancient Egyptian language belongs. And so, I don't know if y'all can see my mouse, but this is the archaic stage, Negro-Egyptian archaic. It broke up into three branches: branch 1, branch 2, branch 3. There are some linguistic features that make these two branches unique out of the three. This one didn't have the fundamental innovations that kind of tied these two together. And this branch here is what we believe ultimately left Africa and became the Semitic languages. But we will see, in the Where is the Love book, that basically all three of these branches, have migrated outside of Africa proper in terms of the modern borders into the Levant and into the European homeland, and helped to develop the Indo-European languages and the Semitic languages. Now, before his framework and Bowley's framework, I was using G.J.K. Campbell Dunn's, framework and analysis, and he wrote a book called Comparative Linguistics, Niger-Congo and Indo-European. And so he's arguing as well. This book came out in 2006, that the Indo-European languages ultimately derived from Niger-Congo. Niger-Congo is a language family proposed by Joseph Greenberg in 1963 in his Origins of Languages book. Among three other language groups in which he has, which is kind of the standard labeling for these groups. So we have Niger-Congo, we have the Khoisan languages, we have Nilo-Saharan, and then we have Afro-Asiatic. There has been a lot of opposition, not only from African scholars on this question, but other European, in terms of genealogy, scholars, looking at this work and showing the arbitrariness and the weakness of these labelings of the four so-called phylums of African languages. And one of those major proponents was Dr. Theophilo Wobinga. And so he wrote a book in 1993, translated from English, basically, the common origins of Egyptian, Coptic, and modern Black African languages. And so he came up with this concept called Negro-Egyptian after doing a linguistic analysis and refining the labels that was given by Greenberg in 1963. And so from there, Jean-Claude Mboli actually refines, Dr. Theophilo Wobinga's 1993 work with this 2010 work. So this is kind of what you're seeing right here. And so, the languages that come out of the Negro-Egyptian will be called Kweki, Kikwe, and Kikuki languages. These are the three major branches. Out of the Kweki and Kikwe languages became the dialects Bere and Beher. And in the Bere branches on this chart, you have the Hausa, Zandi, and Middle Egyptian languages. In the Beher branch, you have Coptic, Shango, and Somali. And Coptic and Middle Egyptian in Egyptological literature, they treat them as one continuum language, and Bowley says that they are different languages, and he provides his linguistic proof for both of those. That's neither here nor there at this particular point. Just wanted to show you, the framework in which we're operating from. So this is a smaller chart of the Negro-Egyptian post-classic or post-classic Negro-Egyptian stage. As we mentioned earlier, the Bere, Behir branches, Middle Egyptian, Hausa, Zande, Mande, Proto-Mantu, Gabaya, Newer, Wolof, Coptic, Zerma, Bande, Somali, Shango, if I didn't say that already. So it's just a smaller, variant and more detailed of the left side of the map that you just saw previously. And so here's where the discussion, begins. Here's a map. It's for those who have the book. Let me go to the page. You will find it on page 26 of my text. And so on page 26, you'll see this map and the discussion of this map and the other maps, on the following pages and things of this nature. And so what Mboli, argues, Mboli doesn't have this in his work. This is my additional analysis actually in support of Mboli. Mboli argues that the Proto-Indo-European comes from, in part, 3 waves of Negro-Egyptian speakers. And so there's a certain things that we got to understand first fundamentally. So this is a National Geographic map that you're looking at. This map here is proposing the out of Africa migrations. And so they argue around 50,000 to 30,000 years ago, Africans coming out of the central Great Lakes area through Ethiopia, modern Ethiopia, left Africa from the southern route, coming through Yemen and into Asia proper, into India, and then spread out from there. And so there's a branch here that goes all the way down into, the Papua New Guinea Islands and all that other good stuff. There's China over here, Vietnam, all that, good stuff. But here's, India, here, Japan over here. And so, all of these groups, come out of a group of Indians that, spread out from this bunch here. However, if we look over here, we'll see that, there was some migration here, but then there was a back migration going in 2 fundamental directions. And so one is going up here to kind of populate Europe. You have another branch of the same group that left here and went into the Middle East. This is very important because what we're looking at here is what we call convergence theory, is what I kind of discuss here, polygenesis and convergence theory. And that is that, certain languages and language groups actually develop as a result of convergence. Is 2 different speaking populations that live amongst each other, and in essence, because of their proximity to each other, they develop their languages start to merge and sound alike to the point that now these languages give birth to other languages, so to speak. And this is how we're arguing that Semitic and the Proto-Indo-European languages developed. And so after this back migration, these are, folks coming from India. These Negro-Egyptian speakers who were still in Africa, they left through Egypt and the Sinai to kind of populate this area here in Anatolia, and then moved up here into the Caucasus. And so they again came in 3 waves, and you can see the waves, discussed in the book. But this is very important. So a lot of these concepts that we find in these African languages find themselves in these Semitic and in these Indo-European languages. as a result of, these migrations, into this area. And so this is a genetic map here that's showing, how these areas were populated. And then, we deal with the linguistics, aspect throughout this particular chapter, and showing and giving you examples of how we can demonstrate that these African speakers made their way, here in terms of Negro-Egyptian. And then there's also some genetic data which shows in these developmental stages that there were sub-Saharan Africans who made it there and left their genetic imprint, which supports, indirectly, what Mboli was talking about in terms of these migrations. And so that's what you're seeing here. And so the word love in Indo-European has been reconstructed by Indo-European linguists as the word lube, which is we kind of say it funny. We don't know how you would actually pronounce this, but it's, I'm saying lube. And this B sound actually has an aspirant H behind it. So it's kind of a B type sound. So lub, lube. And I probably sound funny to y'all saying it like this, but that's how it's been reconstructed by Indo-European linguists. And so this reconstruction in the various different languages has these particular meanings. To care for, praise, extol, grant, promise, intense craving, approve, trust, faith, confidence, arouse, desire, seduce, greed, lust, willing, well, make love, to have sex, adoration, wish, want, covetousness, what man likes to have, a prostitute and prostitution, desirable, valuable, believe, happy, bless, permit, grant, glorify, yearning, pledge, vow, hope. This is a wide range of meanings, and of course, not any one language has all of these meanings. I'm just putting this all here based on all of the meanings that we can gather across the Indo-European language family. But as you can see here, there's a lot of definitions that have to do with, a kind of feeling, emotion, and as well as this concept of lust in essence. And so in an Indo-European context, when somebody says, that, love is not lust, well, that's not accurate. Matter of fact, love is defined as lust in a few of these languages. And so, we wonder in terms of the modern day, why we have the problems that we have in terms of our understanding of love. And I should say this to kind of backtrack. When I was having these discussions over the years as it regards this concept of love, in the American context, I would ask people for their definition of love, and you would find a lot of people saying that, well, love means something different to everybody, to different people. And while this may be the case, I kind of find this to be problematic, because if love is defined differently by each person you meet, then it makes it harder for, people to really kind of hook up in terms of shared interests and things of that nature, because and to really kind of have a certain type of expectation of others, as it regards this particular concept of love. And so you reduce your chances of finding like-minded people if everybody has their own, definition that is, not culturally set. And so part of this discussion here is to develop a cultural understanding of love, so we have something concrete to draw from, so that when we find someone of interest, that we can all have the same, fundamental understanding of what this is and what to expect from people, who claim to love you in essence. And so, this is why this particularly is important. And so in my analysis, I have to, demonstrate the sound laws in linguistics. So I can say that the word love that we have here, the fundamental, issues we have here is this L and this BH sound. And so in order for me to make the argument that the African languages have this word love, I have to show as a linguist regular and systematic sound and meaning correspondences between an array of words that have no meaning, no related meanings to each other. And so this is what I do in this particular chart. Where can you find this chart? In the book. Let me find it real quick. On pages 39 and 40, you will find this particular chart in the text. And so what you see here, like for instance, I'm comparing Indo-European and Middle Egyptian. You see everywhere where this BH, this B sound is, you'll see fundamentally that it corresponds with B in Middle Egyptian. And where you see this L, you'll see that it corresponds with this sign right here. And we'll get into that a little later, but fundamentally it's an R sound. It's a nasalized volar trill. And this is a suffix and this is a suffix, but you'll see that it corresponds, consistently, with that. So, BH, B, L, R. BH, this is supposed to be superscript like this, but this is a BH. And L for log beam, we see the same correspondence here. This is a nasalized, this is a different type of R, but as we can see, we're backed up here with BR in terms of wooden pegs, wooden beam. Here's the hieroglyphs. I'm not even sure if y'all can really kind of see that. They're kind of small here. They're a little bigger in the book. But even when it's reversed, in terms of the syllables are inverse. We see L and B. So even the B corresponds with B. So we see B, and this is the R here. BR, BR. So moist, damp, to pour forth, to pour, to wet. This is a GW, a kind of GW sound. L, and then we had that BH here. Here we go in Egyptian. This is a kind of a K sound, kind of a Q, a Qu, and it corresponds here. We see the the L here, and then this R here, and then BH again, and B in terms of intestine, gut, interior, middle. Bird with carry. It's actually now the BH is turned into an F in Egyptian, but we still see even here R corresponds with R. This is what we call a labiovelar, a simultaneous articulation of the G and the B sound. And so we know that this word carry here comes from a word meaning arm. And so most of your verbs in African languages come from nouns. And so you have the arm, and then you have the action of the arm. And so this R, this sound right here, with this funny kind of looks like a number 3, which is an R sound, this is actually a suffix that is for body parts. And so the real root here is this F or this GB, and this B here, and then this R and this R and this R here is a suffix for a body part. So that's how you know that the word is dealing with the body. But that's another discussion. I just threw that in there, for anybody who would understand that. And so BH here turns into P, in terms of the flower, the blossom. This BH here, again, turns into B. This L, R, and this, and this is a word for penis and vulva or anus, or that area down there. We see the same thing here. This is another suffix here. And even remember that BH also turns into F, in P. And so we see this again here with the word nefer, which means penis or phallus. Same thing as just your personal areas. And, we can do this basically all day, but it's consistently, it's regular. And so when we see an L in that BH in Indo-European or Proto-Indo-European, we know, at least in Middle Egyptian, that it's going to correspond with this B sound for the BH, and this nasalized volar trill R sound with this L, or R sound in Indo-European. And so, with that said, we have, words for heart here. This has actually been reconstructed with an R sound, but I discussed that in the text, but it's to wish, to desire, to take thought, to take care. It's also a word, we say iv, is a word for heart, mind, understanding, intelligence, will, desire, mood, think and suppose. Here's the hieroglyphs form. But here's the word here. And so this is a kind of a reduplication, a partial reduplication. And so you have rib, ribib, or ribebi, to desire, wish for, to love, to long for, to covet, ireb, or rebi, to desire, to wish for, and I don't think y'all can see it, but it's to love. It's basically the same word as is up here. And so for some reason it's gone beyond the visible scope. But this is the word love in ancient Egyptian that you're seeing right here. And so remember, this is an R sound, possible L, and so lub or reb, rib, ribby, erib, to desire. So we see the same definitions that we see in the Indo-European. And so I also wanted to note for those who may not be familiar with the ancient Egyptian writing script and wanted to know how you would pronounce these in the words that you say, this is kind of it here. And so when you see this kind of arm glyph, it's more of a KHI, h sound. And these are some texts that argue for different pronunciations of this particular glyph. But this is the glyph here that you see that I was talking about with that particular sign that looks like a 3. And this is what we call a nasalized uvular trill. This is an R, and that little squiggly line lets you know that it's nasalized. And so this is kind of a KH sound, KHI sound. This is kind of an R sound. And so, there. But I want to stop. Is there any questions from anybody on the panel?
I have a quick question, Brother Asar.
Go ahead.
We were talking about the various forms of love, or were you saying that there was only one definition, or do you differ with the Greek version of love, how they break it down with, the eros and the agape, etc., the different ways of expressing love? Because, like, even with the various definitions that you posted up under that title, it meant many different things. So how do you see that? Do you see that as it just being one form, or do you see it as a proper breakdown of the same expression of the word?
Now, I think what you're talking about is more so application as far as the Greek is concerned, for example. And as I stated earlier, all those definitions that you saw for the word love in Indo-European,
yes, sir,
those are the collective meanings from different languages. Not every language has the word or their pronunciation of love with all of those meanings. I just took the whole Indo-European family and then showed the wide range of meanings and applications.
Yes,
because
sir.
words kind of not necessarily change definition, but they're applied differently, in as time goes on in different searches. So they gain a wider scope of semantics, so to speak. And so that's what we're seeing there. And so
okay, so the context could the different definitions are applied to those different contexts of use.
Exactly. So for instance, the one of the core meanings is lust, which comes from a more core meaning, which is for wish and desire. So if from wish and desire you get this concept of lust. From lust you get this concept of sex and prostitute. The variant that means prostitute is found in Greek.
Yes, sir.
So
yes, sir.
you see if you can understand the chain meaning of what I'm saying here. So they're all kind of built off of a core meaning, and then these derived forms, give it that expansive sense.
Thank you for clarifying. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Anybody else? Okay, I will take that as a no, and I will continue to move forward. So, here's my proof that this particular glyph here, has a K or KH type sound. I'm comparing it with Chiluba Bantu. We can see this word for claw and hand with that sign. And so we say sioko or sioku, paw, thigh, leg, foot, claw, hand, paw. Same thing here. We'll go here for, it's supposed to be like car, arts, leave, to go out. The inverse is here, to leave, abandon, stop, terminate, leka. And so this would be ker, but this is the inverse, leka. For ring, in coco, this W turned into an O sound. And so in coco. This word for baboon, ikim, here it's ikima, monkey, inchima, monkey. And on down, even with this word here, nanga, bunagi, love, charity. This is another variation of the word love, because it's built off of a particular root. And so we'll get into that, a little later. But, this helps to solidify that when I say, this is a K sound, what I'm talking about, or where it derived in terms from a K sound, what I'm talking about. And so again, when you make these kinds of claims, you have to be able to demonstrate and show consistently, these sound meaning correspondences, between these words. Here's some more examples of this, and I should say that the reason why this is important, because when you read Egyptological literature, they will have this as a kind of an A sound. And so what I'm demonstrating is not an A sound, it's not a vowel. It's not ah. It's an actual consonant, because the ancient Egyptians didn't write out their consonants. And so, here we go again. As it regards, this word here. So we say, this is a consonant, this is a consonant, this is a consonant. So KRK, Kikongo, Kalunga, complete, to complete. KRK, tie, bind, Kikongo, Kalunga, to tie, bind. We say unk, but it's not really unk. That's a K sound. So this is a captive or bound person. And in Kikongo, we have kanga, to tie up, capture, bind, attach. And so this is how you would say unk, captive, kanga, at least in Kikongo. This here, remember that this is an R sound, so this is a K and an R. Great, leader, chief, master. In Chiluba, in Kole, prominent or powerful man. In Kole or in Kwele, God. And then, you have this nga suffix here. So Kalunga, great chief. And this is basically a variant of this here, to grow up, mature, an excess, difference, same thing here, grow, increase, aging, kola. This would be kind of koli, in Egyptian. And so again, when you're making linguistic arguments, you have to be able to demonstrate, especially with these consonants, consistently, these sound meaning correspondences. And so that's important for Unk's question. And so now we'll be getting into Unk's initial question and aspect of the discussion. But here's just another variation. So when you say per Unk, the house of life is really per Congo, per Kanga. And this is the word here. It's the site of initiation. That K sound was followed by an I, and it became palatalized. So you can also say Zingu. So per Zingu or Kuzingu or Sasulu Biazingu, Institute for Enlightening Institute. So there's the Per Unk, which was a college, for priests in ancient Egypt. It still lives on today in the Congo. It's just called Kukanga, site of initiation. And the Sansulu Biazingu, Institutes for Life. Budulu Biamesu, the Eye Enlightening Institute. So we're opening your vision. And so here we go, Kanka. Okay, so now I didn't prepare a slide for this. I should have, but I'm just going to tell you that the root of the word love itself is the L sound. What the B is actually an infix, a suffix. in the Indo-European case. But in early African languages, the word order wasn't set, and so that B was actually a prefix, and B's, and I'm gonna say this as well, B's, M's, as in Mary, they interchange, and so the B also, as we saw, interchanges with P, F, and sometimes V. And so these are all the same sound. And what happens is the Middle Egyptian language has two variations of the same word. So you have, ribby, which we saw earlier, and then you have Mary, which I'm showing you right now on the screen. And so this word Mary, that B that we saw earlier, remember that the two syllables are inversed. And so the R still remains, but now the B has been nasalized. And so it's an M sound. And so when you say Mary, like in Tob Mary, like the beloved land, that's the variation of the word love. And so the Egyptian language has it actually has 3 or 4 different variations of the word love, dialectical variations. And so for this dialect here, which was just looking at it, I would say it's a Kweki dialect branch. It became Mary. And so to love, to like, Merut, love, will, desire. Mary, love, want, wish, desire, prefer, covet, cherish. All those kind of definitions that we saw earlier. Meruti, the well-beloved. Merut again, love, will, desire. There's some more examples here, but for some reason, it's not showing up all the way on my screen. I don't know how it would show up on your screen, but after Merut here, I can't see anything. But that's neither here nor there. Y'all pretty much, get the gist. So love, Ribby, that is one variation of the word love. Mary is another variation of the word love. And so it's from this word Mary that you actually get the word Mary. That has come through the Semitic, through Hebrew in terms of Mary, the mother of Jesus. And it's from this same root here. Because it refers to, like, we have this word, the well-beloved or one's beloved. In the African languages, in Egyptian and, even in modern Collagen, a Mary is a title that you give your wife who has not produced children as of yet. That's what the word Mary and how it is applied in the ancient Egyptian and in the Collagen languages. That's a title of a wife. It's not that she's a virgin. It's just that she hasn't produced any children yet. Once they have produced children in the relationship, she takes on another name, or she absorbs, or she's given another name. She in various different ones. But just to show you, where that comes from. And so the root word, here for Mary is found in the word Maat. And so again, the reason why I had to explain those two sound values earlier is because we're pronouncing this Maat, but this really should be Meroitic, because this is an R sound and this is a K sound, or a hard H, like a ha, Meroitic or Meroitic. That's how you would pronounce, quote unquote, Maat. And I should say that this R sound, this RL in Chiluba is Ila. And Ila means to anything that exits from the self. It could be a thought, an idea, or an object. And this is going to become very crucial, to understanding what this root love means, because this word love comes from that same root. And so, for those who are not familiar with Ma'at or Meroitic, it means truth, justice, straightness, balance, and order. As I was saying before the show started, that the word Ma'at itself is not one word. It's different words. And we know this from comparing in different languages. But in the Egyptological literature, they kind of put all of these meanings together, which they all may have different roots or may be derived from different forms. it's confusing because we don't have the vowels in between to be able to tell us exactly, what it is. But just wanted to put this out there. And so, to give another example here, Malana Karanga, posits that the etymology of the word Maat suggests an evolution from a physical concept of straightness, evenness, levelness, correctness, as the wedge-shaped glyph suggests, to a general concept of rightness, including the ontological and ethical sense of truth, justice, righteousness, order, in a word, the rightness of things. And that's from Malana Karanga's book Maat that was released in 2006, I believe. But so, when you're looking at Maat, which is Meroitic, again, if that is the case, then when we're looking into these related African languages, we should find a similar spelling along these lines here, and this is exactly what we do. And so remember, this concept of Maat in this sense comes from a word meaning straightness in a role and things of that nature. And so in Kikongo, it's in longa. This N corresponds with M. This L here corresponds with this RL sound. And then this NG corresponds with this K sound, here. And so it's in longa. That's how you would say Maat. And this T is a feminine suffix. It is not present in the Bantu languages, at least in this format, in this fashion. And so it is not present. And so, but in Kikongo, it's in longa, line, row, foul, a swarm of driver ants on the march, a troop, swarm, train of people fouling, going along. In Kikuyu, this N prefix, and I should say that this is a prefix in Egyptian, is not present. So they just say runga, straighten, chiluba, mulongo. And so this N corresponds with chiluba M. So mulongo, rank, row, line, series, many. And so people should also know that when you say order, remember that one of the meanings of Maat is order. To put something in order is to put in a line, to put in a straight line. And there's a hierarchy based on that line. So it's just like if you go into the military, you know for a fact that, a 4-star general can give an order to a 3-star general and to a 2-star general and to a petty officer. But a petty officer cannot give orders, to a 2-star general or a 3-star general or 4-star general. If he was to try to give them a command, the first thing that they would say is that this person is out of order. You're not respecting the line. You're not respecting the chain of command. This is what this concept of order comes from, putting your ducks in a row, putting everything in order. And this sense of order, this sense of line also, corresponds to the sense of goodness. Because everything is good when everything is in order, when everything is lined up correctly. And so this is very fundamental when you're understanding why Maat means Maat. But this same root, this root here, this is the root of the word Maat. M is a prefix, T is a suffix. It's how we get reg or right in English. And so this Proto-Indo-European reconstruction of reg, move in a straight line, also to rule, to lead straight, to put right. When you say the word right, you're actually saying the word Maat without the M prefix. It's the exact same word. And so again, these African words are in the English language because they ultimately come from, Africa in terms of those waves that we discussed earlier. And so, different way to prove exactly what I'm talking about here. If R is the root of the word Maat, we should also see a variation with just the root itself in the Egyptian language. And of course we do. And so in Middle Egyptian, we have this reduplication here, riri, really, truly. In Chiluba, we're verified in it. They have 3 L's instead of 2. They say lalela, lalelele, truth, authentic, variable. And in Setswana, they just have it at 2 R's. RRI, just like we see really, truly. Setswana, ruri. And so if we wanted to say this, if Ruri, it would be, just like how they probably pronounce it in ancient Egypt. In Yoruba, the R or L sound was a D and a T sound. And so they say ododo, otito, truth, fact, justice, equality, right, righteousness. The exact same meanings that we see, with Maat. And so this is how we know that this is the root of Maat. And here's the hieroglyphs for it, Riri. So that's how you would see this in the hieroglyphic script. And so what the Chiluba language allows us to do, since we compared and can verify that this is the exact root, when we look into the Chiluba language, we notice that there's different variations with prefixes on here, just like what we suspected with the ancient Egyptian, the Middle Egyptian. It's a prefix added to it. So here we go now. So now this R has been nasalized, and I think it was nasalized as a result of this nasal M here. So an M sound is a nasal because to say M, you have to kind of breathe out of your nose or breathe into into your nose. So you say mm. It's just like with N. The sound comes out of the nasal. And so we have so-called Maat, which is Meroitic, truth, justice, harmony, balance. In Chiluba, we have Ma Lelela, reality, truth. We also have Bu Lelela, reality, truth. We also have Sie Leka, truth, reality. And so this double L here is dropped, and another suffix here, this KE, comes. They don't have the M or B prefix here, but they have a different prefix, but the root is still the same. So this LK is this LK or RK right here. And so Chiluba verifies, by looking at the roots, knowing the roots, how you pronounce this and where this root comes from. And so in the Bassa language, which is a Bantu language out of Cameroon, they pronounce it probably more in alignment with the ancient Egyptian. My lega, truth. In Zande, they don't have the M prefix, so it's Ringo again, truth. Somali, room, truth. The G was dropped, and so it's just room. Kikongo again, the M is an L, so they say Nlungu, justification, the state of being just, justice, righteousness, blameless, completeness. Kikongo again without the M prefix, Lunga, be accurate, right, be exact, be perfect. Isizulu, Lunga, become right, good. Isizulu, Utulunga, I don't even know if y'all can see that, but accuracy. So you see all of these different variations. This word Maat is still pronounced in modern African languages in its truest form, especially in the Bantu. But what I want to bring out here was this goodness, Lunga, goodness. This NG, again, it's a suffix. The root is here. Lu, lu, ru, ri, li, le, ru, ri, le, odo, tito. These are all the same variations on the same root. And so this, what I wanted to stress again was this concept of goodness. Because there's another variation of this word good in ancient Egyptian, which also verifies that the root is RK. And that is a word, we pronounce it as ak, but it's not ak, it's rech. That's a dialectical variation of ma'at, meaning goodness. And so, if we have time, I'll go into that. But, well, I guess I'm good. And so, Dr. Fukiao, in his African Cosmology of the Bantu Congo, discusses, in matter of fact, in a lot of his books, especially this one here, Self-Healing Power and Therapy, talks about this concept of balance in Kikongo. And just like in ancient Egypt, when you die, your deeds are weighted on a scale. And so instead of, goodness and evil in terms of Isfet being evil in ancient Egyptian, they go by Imbi, evil, and Bote, goodness. And so right here, you see a perfect balance in terms of goodness here. in terms of health. And this is done at an ancestralization ritual. But they say the only people that can really be this perfect and good are people who have, lived and died, to age 2. And so if you reach age 2, but something happened, a tragedy, you died a perfect person, in that sense. Everybody else, our scales kind of look like this, because we're older, we've been conditioned, we've had time to experience and do some things. So, our scales tilt. But what's important here is not only in terms of the ancestralization, in terms of the scale, because for those who know Maat, you are weighed, your deeds are weighed on the scale of Maat in ancient Egypt. It's the same thing in the Congo. But this word here, kaninga, balance, this is a nasalized variation of this root here, lunga, balance, in Kikongo and in most Bantu languages. So when Fukiao is talking about kaninga, which you see here in the balance, he's talking about Maat without the M prefix. This L turns into an N. And so L, N, and then the NG and NG remain the same. Kaninga, which is just basically Maat, Meroitic, Lunga, balance. And it's also a word for health. And so, this is very interesting as well. And so what I found as it regards the Zulu, who actually have this word as well, is that they greet each other with Maat, but the more with the root variation. So in this particular text, writing Nature Cultures and Zulu Zionist Healing, Dr. Fleek states, in a study of Bantu healing rituals, Jansen sheds light on this when he argued that conceptions of health are captured in the notion of leading a balanced life. In Zulu, the root is lunga, used in greetings, wishing people health and well-being, including the notion of balance and harmony with the natural and social environment. To reestablish harmony and balance is thus a goal of the healing process. In order to achieve this, the rituals focused on the manipulation of places and relations to living and departed relatives to achieving healing. I've bolded these particular aspects of this citation because, again, it reinforces this root concept of balance in health as it regards Maat. And so they greet each other with a word, the same root for love, with each other. And it's interesting because the collagen, they greet each other with the word Maat as well. And so and I can give examples in other African traditions. It's different, like, how when we greet each other here in the States, and we actually got this, I think, from the Muslims, basically from the Muslims, because when they greet each other, they'll say peace, or the early Hebrews, they'll say a variation of peace. And so for them, when they greet each other, they wanted to ensure that, when we're engaging each other, that, it's all peace. I'm not coming with any conflict, but that is a totally different conceptualization than what we find on the African continent, where they don't greet each other with peace. They greet each other with words meaning life, health, and balance. So just like when you, and Wujawu can attest to this, when you greet the king, in the ancient Egyptian writings, the phrase that they have is Unk Uja Seneb, life, prosperity, and health. That's how you would greet each other. So we greet each other with life. We speak life into each other. We speak blessings. So our meeting is more so, I'm going to give you a blessing. I'm going to speak blessings and health to you, versus in a different conceptualization where you're just trying to make sure that, we are on good terms, that there's no conflict. Because obviously there must have been a time where there was much conflict, to where when you said the word for peace, they knew that you were coming not as to rob or pillage them, but to come in the spirit, of peace. And so ultimately related concepts in terms of peace and love and things of that nature, but different kind of conceptualizations of when they greet each other. And so you can greet someone with Maat. That's how you greet someone, because you're speaking life, you're speaking health and balance into the person who you're meeting. So that's kind of that African context and African orientation that I was speaking of earlier. And so that same root, that L, which has a K prefix here, is at the heart of the word that I use to suggest a new name for African Americans. And so this is the word Bakala as written in the modern Mayendombe script out of the Congo. And so this is the BA, KA. You can see the syllabic, there's a syllabic script here. So the BA, the KA, and then the L, A kind of variant here. And so it's Bakala. And so the definition of the Bakala is the enlightened, and I use paronymy for this, but the enlightened, spirited, vitalistic people of the sun whose love radiates like the warmth of burning coals. Because that L or R in this instance has a K prefix. So you say Kala. But Kala can also mean sun. Kala can also mean enlightened. Kala can also mean spirited. And also Kala can also mean to be in burning coals. And so I just kind of combined all of that together and gave a definition. But it's built off of that same root, at least the word for love, for this word, this variation, in terms of love. If we get into that, I'll get into this. And I'll just end there. But what I wanted to say is that root, Ila or Ra or Re in the word for love is a word for extension, to extend, to lengthen something. And so let me stop here. So hopefully you can see my screen now. The word means to give, to extend from the self. And so it's like if you're stretching your hand. So remember that root in Maat, means to straighten, to lengthen, to make straight, to make a line. It's the same thing like if you was to do your arm the same way. So you can see my arm kind of stretching and lengthening itself. You would do this when you're giving to somebody. If you can see my hands, my open hands like this, I'm giving something to you. Or I extend my hand in help, to help you. Let's say you're in a ditch somewhere and I extend my hand and then pull you out of the ditch. That's what love is. It's just the extending of yourself to help somebody else in service to one another. And that's what the Africans, deal with in terms of goodness. That's when something is good, when you can extend your hand and extend yourself in the service of another human being. And so I'll just stop here for now, see if there's any more questions from the panel, or just any, that doesn't necessarily have to be a question, it's just a comment, and then we can kind of move on from there, if you have a question or comment. And before I open, or before y'all say that, if you are listening live, again, you can ask me questions via the question and answer app. So hit the Q&A at the top, and ask away, and I'll be able to direct your question if it's to somebody other than myself, or we can discuss it here. And so that's the again, at the top it'll say Q&A. Hit that. You can ask your question. So it should happen if you're looking at me from Google Hangouts, or if you're looking from the YouTube channel directly. But Brother Wujawu?
Yeah, I was going to say it's interesting of you going over the different concepts of Ma'at and how it can tie into the moral fabric of a society, because when you discuss the extension of one's arm, or how the root word is coming, being extended from the self, and how it relates to all these different derived terms, that you can see how the moral fabric could be built off of that, where people see themselves inside of each other. And also, I noticed on one of your slides, you had the definition of ma'a, meaning to toe. as like as in a rope, where all of humanity is connected by way of a rope. So if everyone sees each other as oneness, then love would seem to become the expression of that oneness. So it kind of all ties in where love, the morality, the extension of oneself, the giving of yourself without expecting anything in return, because obviously if I give something to you, I'm giving it to myself. So and then I know you didn't discuss it yet, but I see how it spills over into the economic system and how we deal with each other and things like that, like I said before, and obviously with relationships. So yeah, I just find that real interesting, and it kind of answers the question of why was Maat so important to the ancient Egyptians. Why is it that we can say that the society was built upon Maat, or bless you, Senepti, I should say. Also, as far as a cosmological level, how the universe was basically kind of built off of Ma'at. Ma'at is one of the first manifestations of the so-called supreme being in the Egyptian text. So I just find all of it's interesting. It ties in. It all makes sense. So that was pretty much all. Oh, and then when you did say how the Egyptians greeted the kings or greeted each other, Uncle Jasaneb, that's abbreviated form. They actually literally said Dienek Uncle Jasaneb, which means I give you, ready was to given. So I'm giving you life, health, and prosperity. So yeah, that was good to show the difference between, hey, I'm submitting in peace because we're a barbaric, warlike people. So I gotta tell you straight up from the get-go that, hey, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm coming in peace, as opposed to, hey, I'm giving you health, I'm giving you prosperity, and I'm giving you life. That's a big difference. So yeah, I appreciate that.
No doubt, I appreciate your commentary. And we'll get into that wholeness in a sec. I just want to see if anybody else has any commentary or questions for me. If not, I'll just move on from there. Okay. Well, I'm gonna share my screen again because you brought up something that was very fundamental, to of Maat. And so I'll start from this slide. And so can someone verify for me that you can see the full screen?
Yeah, Congo cosmology.
All right, cool beans. All righty. Now, this, serves many purposes in Congo cosmology. Because this is actually, if you can kind of think of a funnel, and if you're looking at the top of a funnel, like for brothers who fix cars, and you have to put that oil, into the engine, you use a funnel primarily, and so it's a circle at the top, and then it gets narrower and narrower, towards where the hole is, the smaller hole is, so you can put the oil in it. And so this is kind of what you're seeing, from a top view. But it also has a kind of a different view because it's supposed to be the path of the sun. And so the sun, just like in ancient Egypt, to where there was a sunrise, noontime, sunset, then the sun went on the underground. It's the same thing in the Congo region. So, rise, maturity, death, in the ancestral world. And so this is what you see. But this ultimately, also relates to the universe itself. And so in Fukiao's work, you can see this. This is the Mbongi, the Nun. In a different lecture, I show how the word Mbongi is the word Nun, linguistically. That's a totally different lecture, so I won't get into it, but just trust me for right now that this Mbongi is the Nun of ancient Egypt. And this is Kalunga, who the fire force that rises out, which is Ra, which rises out and creates creation. But this line here is also called Kalunga. or the Lunga line. And that Lunga line, that Kalunga line, is Maat, because remember the root is Lunga, Lungu. It's the straightness, that ties and makes everything in order, here. But this is just circles, a universe, or they'll use a kind of a square or rectangle, same thing. And so this is a universe, a cosmos. And so I'm saying this to say, and this may answer some other questions for Brother Unk that we was having, privately in another earlier today, is that this Ma'at makes everything in unity. It unites everything together. It keeps everything in order. And so this is, even though it's a circle, it represents infinity. And so, of course, you can never really kind of put infinity on paper. And so, we're ignoring that there's any, that there's space outside of, here. So just ignore that. All of infinity is basically in here, which means that the Mbongi, the Noon, the fundamental creator, can only create within itself. It can only evolve that which, the substance that which is in here. And so everything evolves from within inside the creator itself. And this has major implications for what we're talking about, because in the African context, you are, spirit energy that has always existed, because God has always existed. God is existence itself. But a fragment of this existence decided to morph into human form to complete certain tasks. And these fundamental tasks, has to be brought out. Excuse me, let me back up a little bit. These, not only are you a spirit being, as Professor James Smalls would always say, that you're a God having a human experience. So not only are you God having a human experience, you are God come to earth with a certain set of gifts, a certain set of talents and aspirations. Now, you have to grow up and bring out these talents. This is the whole purpose of education, because education means to draw out. And the education system is supposed to draw out those inner gifts of the student. And so this drawing out, this education, as you'll find in the book, it also has the same root in the African languages for the word love. And it's through these acts of love, in terms of charity, to make sure that this particular child has everything that they need in order to blossom and flourish, that allows that spirit being, this aspect of the divine, to share its gifts and to help the community solve its problems. But it's all of this is based on this cosmic conceptualization here, that is only in infinity. God is not something separate from creation. God is creation itself. Just having a human experience, just having a tree experience, just having an asteroid experience, having a cell experience, having an atom experience. It's just this, it's all the same God, all the same substance. But within the construct of, a human society, you come here from previous times, because they believe in reincarnation, that you come here to not only work on your perfection, but to come to help solve community problems. And the only way that we can ensure that you are able to solve your problems is that the community comes together and shares its gifts, shares its knowledge, and shows you love in order to draw out the best of you, so you can in turn do the same for the next generations. Now, with that said, when it comes to interpersonal relationships, these interpersonal relationships, especially in intimate, male-female relationships, the person is seen as somebody who was walking the same life path or a similar life path, that you can draw on each other to help bring out each other's gifts, to help fulfill each other's purposes. And so again, from this cosmic concept, You are a spirit born into the society to fulfill a task, to fulfill a purpose. You came here with a purpose. You came here with something to do. But you know, the way that humanity has evolved over the years, we can't do this by ourselves. So we need other people in order to do this, in order to educate us, to draw, you know, from us these gifts. And so you have love on the communal context, and then you have love in the interpersonal context in terms of the intimate relationship. So ideally, you would want to choose somebody who brings out the best in you, who challenges you in a way that is respectful and loving, but helps you, you know, in terms of their resources and their time as well to help you achieve your ultimate life goals. And so I go through all of this in the particular text, you know. And so, you know, as I argue in the text, love isn't a feeling; it's something you do. It's a verb, and as you saw in terms of the earlier attestations, it was a verb that you would see as it regards our word love in its different variations. And so, let me stop this real quick. Uh, um, it's showing us that the concept of love is a bit more deeper. And of course, you know, I don't necessarily have the time and space to be able to, you know, go through everything in detail here, but just kind of giving you a task, excuse me, a framework, you know, for better understanding, you know, this fundamental love concept. Because again, we want to be around people, and we want to spend our life with people that can help us, you know, in turn to help develop our gifts and to help us fulfill our purpose. But we also have an obligation as living beings within the community to do the same for others. And so that your beloved, your meri or your medium, is the person that, or is just one person who you have consistent and long-term concentrations for your acts of love. That's who your wife is fundamentally. Like, you know, as a man, for if you're a man, if as a man, it is my job to help, you know, her to fulfill her purpose, you know, and it's the same thing for her, you know, saying with me. And so if you know the word Maat, one of the definitions for the word Maat is reciprocity. And so reciprocity is critical to understanding, you know, this concept of love. Because what I do for myself, what I do for you, I would expect that you would do in return. You know, maybe not in the same exact way. It can be done a little differently, but in other words, it's give and take, you know, in it. And so when you understand Ma'at, you can understand the concept of love. If you understand Ubuntu, you understand, you know, saying what love is. And so Dr. Cornel West, you know, says this a lot. He says that, you know, justice is what love looks like in public. And he just doesn't, you know, realize how pharaonic in terms of conceptualization that is, because in the African context, justice and love are the same word. And so you can't say that, you know, you love someone or whatnot if you're not acting justly towards that person. You know, and so, you know, we want this concept of love to be a paradigm. But so now, you know, given all that I said, in the African context, you are born with value. You are born with a certain inclination for solving a certain problem within the community. And as a result, you get a community full of problem solvers. And so this is how it ties into the economic aspect. If you see your neighbor as someone who can solve your problems, if you cannot solve a certain problem yourself, you will pay your neighbor to help solve your problem. Your money goes where your values lie. Money follows values. And so if you do not value the people in your community, your money will not follow the community. And so what I argue fundamentally is that not only the interpersonal, male-female relationship, that love is important, but in the communal and the economic aspect, love is important, because love assumes that this person is valuable and that you will share what you have to reaffirm that value in the person. And this is what you do when you conduct business with somebody. You're reaffirming their value. And so it's an exchange. If I have a problem and you can solve it, and I trust that you can solve it, then I will pay you, I will give you money to solve my problem. Then what you'll do in turn is you will solve my problem, whether it's in terms of a product or a service. And so we've exchanged. I've given you money, you solve my problem. It's an even exchange. And so we have reaffirmed each other, by me, giving you the funds to solve my problem, and then you giving me an excellent product or service to help me solve that problem. And so this is what love looks like in public. It's just, in the sense that I'm not doing shady business with you. I'm not saying one thing and then doing another. I'm not taking so much time to do this. I'm consistent, with you. And so most people don't view it in terms of love, but this is what I want to shape in terms of the conversation. That, when we talk about love, this is an aspect of love. And so I'm hoping, there's a lot, believe me, in that short 118, pages or so, there's much more into this. And, we've already basically reached 2 hours. And so, I don't want to just banter on. I want to, be able to answer, any questions that, anyone has. But you'll see a greater, this book, it really expands the conversation, beyond love, intimate relationship, holding hands, skipping in a field, with somebody, and your heart beating. You'll get a cosmological and a communal context. That's what's different between Indo-European and the Africans. The Africans, love exists within a communal context, whereas within our individualistic Western society, love is something that you do between certain close individuals, so to speak, and that's not the case. Love extends to the cosmos itself. Is literally built off of the principle of love. Love is what holds, the universe together, in essence. And so with the concept of as above, so below, we just apply those same principles that is holding the universe together to something that holds, our communal and our interpersonal relationships together as well. And so what it requires is that the human being be of service to other human beings. And this is, fundamentally what love is. And so that's what I go through in detail as far as the book is concerned. And so I'm looking on the right here. This doesn't look like a question, but someone by the name of Lil Real on the track. Unique name, Lil Real on the track. He just says yes. And so I don't know if that was a question or you just like something that I said. I don't know when you said it, but I appreciate you engaging the conversation. Let me see with this other question. It says, could you please speak on the judgment Papyrus of Ani, walking us through it? We know it's not the topic being covered. Yeah, that's a totally different discussion, altogether. And I think we actually had a discussion on the Papyrus of Ani, and or even just related papyri on that subject itself. So I will postpone, answering that question. And if you would like, we can have a future talk just on that in general, because I think to discuss that would be to go way off, the topic. But I will say this in relationship. Again, I think you asked this at the time when I was discussing the judgment, in the Congo and in ancient Egypt. Now remember that the scale itself was Maat, but your deeds were weighed against Maat. Now, with our understanding, our newfound understanding of love, one could also argue that your your ability to basically reach the heavens, was predicated on how much love that you showed in your life. You know, uh, how balanced were you? How much of service were you to your community and to the world at large? And if you understand that aspect of Ma'at, you understand everything in terms of what is going on in that papyrus, because the papyrus, there's a section in there where what we call the Declaration of Innocence and the Declaration of Virtues. And in the Declaration of Virtues, you will always hear the deceased saying something to the nature of, I have fed, I gave food to those who were hungry. I gave a boat to ones who needed it. I gave clothes to those who were naked. They're showing their acts of love and charity, because that's fundamentally what love is charity. Being having charity with your fellow human being. Again, it has to deal with giving, extending yourself to be of service to another human being. And so that's fundamentally what you were weighed. Those are the deeds that were weighed in that Papyrus of Ani that you were speaking of. And so but to discuss to walk through the papyrus itself, that's a long and totally different discussion. But I appreciate your question. Lil Real on the track has come back and asked about because the whole, I don't know if he started in a mid question somewhere. We're getting a few questions now, so I'm just going to go down the line. He's saying that the whole mer, which means love. And so, yes, again, in the chapter that I have in terms of asking a question or basically making the statement how a whole can, inform us basically about what love is, I play on that, what you're talking about, as far as the mer symbol, which is the sound value is the word love inversed. And I go through the linguistic proofs in the book so you can follow it and you can follow the logic. That whole is very, saying important and into the work. And so, there's a reason why, I chose this image, as the book cover. If y'all can see this here, you will see that it is a man and his wife. Here he has the plow, and the oxen or whatnot, leading the plow. But you see something here. You see, first of all, like I could have used, my first mind, and for the ebook, I used a black couple as the cover. And the cover, it's just a man smiling and his woman smiling, behind them. They all hugged up. But for the print version, I made sure that I showed this image, because this image is love manifest. Because one is male and woman. You see them both out in the field working. There's no concept of this man having to be the sole breadwinner of the family. That is a new Western concept. That is not how Africans did it. Both man and woman contributed to the wealth of the household. And oftentimes they worked together to accomplish a certain goal. So, the man is usually stronger in this sense, so, he has to plow the field, but his queen is right behind him laying down the seed. And so the harvest that they get will be the result of both of them, in unison, working together for that common goal. But more so, the reason why I use the hoe and the plow, as a symbol for love is because love is work. Love is something you do. It's not a feeling that you get. We get confused between the feeling of joy and admiration with love itself. You can love somebody and have no feelings towards them. The joy and admiration and things of that nature that we desire in a relationship comes as a result of love being present, the work. And so love is labor, is hard work here. It's backbreaking, is gonna try you at certain times, but its rewards are great. And so, these are the things that, I kind of bring out and discuss. And so there's a whole chapter, dealing with that. And so, okay, he says, thanks. Yeah, you answered my question. I was asking, is that the purpose of choosing the cover? So, basically, yes. And so, I have some hidden stuff, and you'll find out if you get the book, what this little symbol in the back, means and how this relates to love as well. So, I won't go into that. And so let me get through a few of these. So yeah, we dealt with that already. It says, so this is deep. This shows the cover. Yep. And so he said, this is deep. So this is why you chose the cover with Sennacherib loving the land with his hoe with his wife. Basically, yes. And so it's purposeful again. I want to show that it's an issue of them working together, man and woman working together. I wish brother Ditka Kilimanjaro and his wife Ife Kilimanjaro was able to join us. I had asked them to join the show, but because of travels, they wouldn't have been able to participate. But they have this saying, like if you read their books, they have various different books with their imprint called University of Kemet Press. And one of the things that they stress is this concept called teams win. And so that's fundamentally why I chose this particular image for the cover, to show you that in order to win, you need to team up and partner with people. And your relationships have to have a certain type of expectation and a certain type of decorum in order for both of y'all to win. And so teams win. If you try to do this you try to navigate life by yourself with the so-called rugged individualism, you will fail at all your endeavors. It's only when you partner up with people and you team up that you are successful at what it is that you want to accomplish or need to accomplish to fulfill your fundamental purpose. And so that husband and wife team represents a good kind of modern example of what you can accomplish when you work together. And so I remember just typing Dr. Ditka Kilimanjaro about the program, and one of the things that he responded back with me was that until him and his wife really put aside their egos and work together to fulfill their goals, stuff just wasn't working right. But as soon as that unity happened, then things started to move more quickly, and things began to align better as a result of them coming together for that particular purpose. And so their love, their relationship is strengthening as a result of overcoming common challenges and stuff together. And so that's fundamentally what you'll get in terms of a discourse in this particular book. And so so this one says, where does the Meroitic script font into all of this? I don't know where the word font I assume you're trying to say where does the Meroitic script fit into all of this? I guess that's what it is. Um, I don't know that it does. Not into the greater topic together. Now if you're talking about the language itself, we believe that Meroitic was a Negro-Egyptian language, and Mboli actually, goes into that in his 2010 book that I showed at the beginning of the discussion. And so I'm not sure if you, in particular, Asar Murray was there for that particular discussion. But if you get that book, and if you can read French, then you'll get some kind of semblance into why we think Meroitic is Negro-Egyptian and things of that nature. And so this last comment says, how can we hold on. No, the Meroitic script does not predate the Meta-Neter script. The Meroitic script came later. So yeah, that's a totally different conversation. So okay, now I'm going back to Wanimi Illuminated Mingi, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. This person asks, how can we enlighten Africans that we had the concept of love, preached love, and Jesus was not the first to teach? Also, a big thank you from the sisters for exposing Lot and the rapist of Sodom and Gomorrah. Yeah, that's a totally different conversation. That last part has to deal with the debate that we had in New York against the Hebrew Israelites. But yeah, not only one of the things that I wanted to stress is that not only is the word love African, but the whole religion is built off of love. Like, love is African religion. Like, you can't separate it. Whatever you find in Africa in terms of its fundamental religion, that's what love is. And so that's a totally not a totally different discussion, but it's a related discussion, but that's a totally different discussion than what we have time to do here today, in terms of how to demonstrate that love is African religion. So remember that the word Mary and the word Maat are the same word fundamentally in ancient Egyptian. Maat is the religion of the ancient Egyptians. Maat is love. Their whole system was built off of love. Love was so important to the ancient Egyptians that they named the country Tom Mary, the beloved land. And so this is how deep the rabbit hole goes when it comes to this particular concept. Again, love in the African context is communal. It's also universe in the literal universal sense. And so we can also say that Africans invented love as a result in terms of human conceptualizations, but that would only be by default. Because of course all human beings come out of Africa, and so I didn't try to make that argument, that we invented love, because Africans were first, and we had. So I dealt with the word love itself in English, and demonstrated how that can be traced to Africa, and what are the conceptualizations, surrounding that fundamental term. And so that seems to be, the last question, and you're welcome at Asar Murray. Basically saying thank you. And if there's anybody on the panel, that has any questions or comments, I guess, now would be a good time.
No, this is just a very good flow overall, Brother Asar. Thank you for the volume of information. I'm just taking mental notes, but I just wanted to commend you on that.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
So, Brother Saw, so are you telling me that love can't be, that I shouldn't be looking at women twerking and judge love based on that? No. On a serious note, going back to what you said as far as people coming into the world having a purpose, and to be able to solve communal problems and then inter relationship problems. So as far as people in relationships and what they are seeking in a partner,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you touch on that. I may not have get to that part yet in the book, but do you discuss about divination in terms of relationships and how people may get spiritual readings or divination to find out if a person can actually help solve their problems or help them to as you said, cultivate the inner talents, to basically kind of educate them or to show love on them so they can cultivate those inner talents in the relationship.
No, no, I don't deal with divination in the text, and so there's levels to this. So on this, I'm gonna assume that you're not into African spirituality per se, and divination won't scare you, nothing to that nature. So I don't deal with it in that sense. I however created a criterion that is more practical, for judging whether you should move forward in a relationship or not with someone. And so that's in chapter 7 in the Asar Imhotepian Guide to Relationships. Now, I say that you can add more, but I just have 3 core fundamental. And so the the 3 criterion that I say that should be met before you move forward in a relationship with someone is: 1, you must have at least 5 important interests and values in common. At least 5. 2, you must determine if you two have similar life paths or life goals. That way you can truly be of assistance to each other. And so if you two are going in 2 totally different directions, it may cause some serious conflict in the future. And so that's fundamentally where the divination would come in. But I don't deal with divination in that, because the question then becomes, well, how do you know what you came to do? That's another discussion. But and 3, lastly, you must determine if you two are compatible with each other. Therefore, to get along and respect each other. And so, at the core, you must determine if if there's respect and admiration there, that y'all can get along. That every time you meet, there's not conflict. If you have similar life paths and goals, they don't have to be the same. Just similar enough where you can lean on each other to walk that road successfully, and at least 5 interests and values in common. And so the root word of the word relationship is relate, and so you have to be able to relate on some fundamental level. If you have nothing in common, if you don't have very important values in common, then it's going to be hard trying to maintain that relationship, because y'all just not seeing eye to eye on common things. And so in my personal life, I would say this, but I didn't say this in the book, and that is, you two must be of the same culture fundamentally. And so the Bible folks would say that you would have to be equally yoked, but I say the same culture, and I'm not saying the same genetic. I'm not bringing the race thing into this. What I mean by culture is, a certain culture has a certain framework by which, people live and operate in. And so, if I'm an African-centered person, it would be best for me to find someone who is African-centered in nature, because we'll hold the same values, we'll hold the same interests, and then we might have the same life or a similar life path, in terms of existing in that type of space. And so, if the example I use in the book is like, if I'm an environmentalist, if I live my life to save the environment, but then I'm dating someone who's a fracker who could care less about the environment, that could cause, you have two core fundamental values that are different that could cause, saying a lot of conflict because, your wife or husband show up at a protest at your job, to stop the drilling and all this other kind of stuff because of stuff you're doing to the environment, But, and you can't be cheap with your values and your interests. So it can't be something, the example I gave in the book is it can't be something to the nature of, well, she likes to eat and I like to eat, so that means we should get married. It can't be something as cheap as that. It has to be something that's core, to your being in terms of your values. Do you value, like for me, black people, African people, in general? Do you want to see us as a whole, as a collective, improve, and take our rightful stake in the world? Is your life path, along helping that grander scheme? If that is the case, then we will be, we might be compatible, in that sense. But if you're just a person that's just trying to, just live your life regular, and not be engaged in the struggle, for African people and things of this nature, me and you may not have that much in common, ultimately, because, you're not working for something that is bigger than yourself in many ways. And so that's just a personal, thing with me in terms of, sources of possible conflict, if I don't choose wisely in that domain. And so,
yeah, what you just said kind of brought up the idea in my head about, the call for unity. How a lot of people are saying, why don't we unify? Why don't we set aside our differences, our different ideologies, and just unify? And basically what you just said seems to apply to that as well, because you can't seem to unify. Like if we treat this unity call as if we were getting into a relationship, then it would make more sense, because you can't seem to unify with a group of people that have different core values, because ultimately we'll have problems. So, I just found that interesting. It seems to apply on both things.
I agree, and that's, I've made that argument, dozens of times. And so, why ultimately, for example, African-centered folks can't unify with Hebrew Israelites? Because the core value of Hebrew Israelites is that they are anti-Africans. And so they're anti-other people. Their whole religion is built on being anti-other human groups, to the point where, the God of that tradition is going to kill everybody, or enslave everybody who does not agree, with the tenets and framework of life as articulated by the Hebrew Israelites. And I find that very fundamentally problematic. And so it is a relationship. And so, as I said, this concept of love does not just deal with your intimate relationships with a man and a woman. This is communal. This is societal. This is universal. And so the same criterion applies in that same exact concept. Can we respect each other? Obviously, the Hebrew Israelites don't respect Africans in a way. And so you can't unify with them. It's impossible. It's going to be a source of conflict in the future. And so all of these things must work in tandem, must work in harmony. Remember, Maat means harmony, balance. If you're in a situation where it's nothing but catastrophic disharmony, you can't win in the end. And so it's just going to be another source of conflict. And so, you go where the love is, where you can feel, safe enough to express, yourself in various domains, and that you are reaffirmed. And so that's what a culture, that's what a society does. This is what we're aiming to do as African people, to develop a society in which, I am reaffirmed in my beingness within that society. And so you create a Maatocratic society, a society based on love. And someone just asked, is the book on Kindle? Yes, it is on Kindle. And I guess I should say, I'm talking about the book, where you can find the book. You can go to, Amazon.com, of course, to purchase the book. It is on Kindle, or it should be. I need to double check. And or you can go to my website. I think we're having some problems with my website at this moment. Hopefully it'll be fixed by no later than Tuesday. So the alternative address, if you want to buy directly from me, is my Mocha Suite, website. So it's mochasuite.com, MOCHASUITE.com, and I will put these links at the bottom in the description area for those who are, going to come back to this, discussion here a little later. And so it'll be directly at the bottom, to where you can find it. But again, you go to mochasuite.com, MOCHASUITE.com, and go to the shop page, the shop link, I should say, and just go to the books, and you'll see it in there, along with my other book, Aluja, in there. So there's different ways that you can get it. And so I appreciate, the question. I appreciate everyone's questions and for hanging out with me this long. I guess, again, anybody on the panel has any closing words. This is, there's so much I didn't cover because, again, it would take too long. But, I encourage everyone to get the book and to, have discuss, critically scrutinize what I'm saying, here, and, suggest ways of improvement, in terms of the discourse. And, we can make some things happen, in our lives and, abroad, here and abroad. And so, again, yeah, so if y'all have any closing words, now will be good. We didn't hear from Sister Evelyn, so if you're still listening, if you have anything, commentary or, any questions concerning, what was said, we'd love to hear your voice. She may have stepped away for a moment. Brother Ish. It takes a while for people to unmute their mics. He may have stepped away again himself. Brother Wujawu, any closing words?
I appreciate being invited to the panel and the hangout, and the topic is an excellent topic, and I'm enjoying the book so far. And like I said before, it's confirming a lot of things that I have picked up in the past. And as far as the linguistic analysis, I've definitely learned a lot, and it just reaffirms and confirms a lot of things. And I look forward to finishing it. And so yeah, and I think it's important. I mean, it's to me it's crystal clear. I think everybody should get the book and wrap their mind around it, critique it, analyze, investigate, and then because it's gonna kind of rewire your mind on how you look at love and how we should it'll set the framework for how we should kind of treat each other or the expectations, and even in friendships as well, and just how we treat one another, period. So this is really good. So I appreciate it. Excellent work.
My mic was muted. Saying thank you again, Brother Wujawu. Just wanted to stress as well that this is an example of the practicality of studying history, and especially for those who want to understand the meta-nature script and its possible usages in modern times. And so I utilize the ancient Egyptian meta-nature script to help bring certain points and certain concepts and frameworks that we can utilize immediately in our lives with expected good results and benefits. And so speaking of meta-nature, I know Brother Wujawu just released his book, and so I was want to plug it whenever I have an opportunity. So tell us a little bit about the book and where they can get it, if you can show them as well.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that. Yes, it was released last Tuesday, just passed, and the book is entitled A Beginner's Introduction to Medu-Neter, the Ancient Egyptian Hieroglyphic System. And, the title is self-explanatory. It's a beginner's introduction to the language, basically given the fundamental tools necessary for the way to be open for people to tap into the minds of the ancestors in the Nile Valley, using the language of Medu-Neter, or Rodney Kemet, as the spoken language was called. Because, we always hear, let the ancestors speak, or we venerate the ancestors. But we have, in order to know or to hear them speak, we have to understand the language. So, there's a lot of things left behind, like how you said, utilize the language to extract the different concepts and things like that. So in order for us to tap into the minds of our ancestors, we need to learn the language. So that's basically what the book is about. It's 8 chapters, and by the time you finish the book, you should have the basic tools to look at a museum piece or a picture found online, and be able to decipher, transliterate, and translate the what you're looking at. Especially with practice, it's not something that you're gonna just read and put down. You have to actually practice it and put in work for it. But where you can find it is on my website, www.mdw-ntr.com, and that stands for meduneter.com. And also, as well as on Amazon, amazon.com. You can look search under my name or the title. WUDJAU for Wujau, or under the title A Beginner's Introduction to Medu-Neter, and it'll pop right up.
All right. Thank you for that. And, thank the panel again for joining me. We went 30 minutes over. Of course, that's my fault. But thank you all for hanging out with us this late. And I appreciate it. I appreciate everyone who has supported the work. And again, I look forward to your feedback. I know people are still going through it, digesting it. And so, again, it's not going to be your little ordinary book on love and relationships. It goes a little bit deeper, and, there's an aspect of it that is scientific in terms of the linguistics of it. But in this text, again, I use language to withdraw a better understanding, or linguistics, to fill the linguistics, to better draw a better understanding of, this concept of love. And so, this is my treaty. This is my work to the world. Again, I appreciate everyone who have supported, people who will support, who have helped shape the conversations and the dialogues which went into the book. Thank everyone who has asked questions, in this question and answer session. And please leave a comment. Please share. And all that good stuff. And so, I'll just end it on this note. Love everyone, and well, not everyone. Some of y'all, and that's a different discussion. But anyway, no, but we love, we love those who love in general. And so, my aim is to, help in the cultural development of loving beings, in essence. And so that's going to be the new definer for, what makes you human or not, is your capacity, to love in this sense. And so, again, thank y'all. I'm going to end this hangout and keep the conversation going. All right. Peace.
Peace and blessings. Thank you, brother.
Peace. All right.